We start off with acknowledging the traditional owners of the land where we gather, as we do so electronically. For Corf, that's the Turrbal and the Jagera people, but obviously there's people from right across Queensland and Australia joining us, so welcome. We pay respect to elders past, present and emerging, and acknowledge the important roles of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples within the outdoor community and on the land, sky and waterways used for outdoor activities. Corf also acknowledges the support provided to Corf, but also the outdoor sector by the Queensland Government across our state. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to another session of Coffee and Conversation. My name's Dom Courtney. I'm the Executive Officer of Corf, Queensland Outdoor Recreation Federation, soon to be Outdoors Queensland, as I keep saying. Other Corf staff joining us, Mark Squires. I'm not sure if Hib's on the line here between Witches. I'm not sure if she is today, and Angela Wright, I don't think is here today, but she might be joining us in a little while. Also welcome members of our board and life members, any life members of our organisation who are joining us. All members of Corf, plus others who might be joining us, including, I'm not sure if we've got any reps from other interstate orgs, such as Outdoors New South Wales and ACT, or Outdoors Vic, or Outdoors WA, Outdoors South Australia. I don't think I've missed anyone. You always get in trouble. Maybe the Outdoor Council of Australia. But anyway, recordings of these sessions are available on our website and on YouTube. So if you're looking for some entertainment later on, there's an opportunity for you. And also, please feel free to share the link for these with any of your colleagues who you think might be interested. I think it's a really good opportunity that we're keen to keep expanding the reach as we go along. Got a bit of an update on the agenda there. I've always thrown the other matters at the end. If anyone has any things they want to have a chat about, please say so. We've got quite a few things to talk about, particularly from last week. I just saw Mark's just shared the link to the Coffee and Conversation. So you guys probably already onto it because you're here, but if you want to share that link with anyone else, please do, and encourage them if they want to join. So we'll get straight into it. Aaron's already mentioned the joining us for a beer virtually or otherwise on the 30th of October, the Friday evening. We're going to run our presentation in a virtual sense this year. So Aaron gave me a lovely segue into the Outdoors Queensland Awards promotion that I've been doing. The nominations are open right now. They're closing in a couple of weeks. Really encourage nominations. Nominations haven't exactly been flooding through the doors at the moment. So I think probably need to emphasise again, this isn't just about what's happened in the last 12 months. And things in the last 12 months have been a bit of a blur because of a certain pandemic, but this can be about what an organisation or an individual has done over the last 10 years, 12 years. It doesn't have to be the last 12 months. So I just want to put that out there and encourage you to consider nominating people or organisations that you know of who've done really good things. You can nominate yourself or others. So Mark's just shared the link there to the awards with the nominations. So I'll just pause for a moment to let each of you just fill out that form. We'll just give you, say, 10, 15 seconds, and you can fill in your nominations right now while we're waiting. And Mark can just let me know and give me the thumbs up when he's seen at least, say, 10 received. You can just check that for me, Mark, can't you? You got any yet, mate? Anyway, we will, I'm sure, all of you will probably jump in because you can all think of at least one or two people that are doing awesome things in at least one of those 8 categories that are up on your screen. So please do give it some thought. And I might even remind you of that later on. Training opportunities. I just want to mention the AQIA training again. I've done it, Mark's done it as well. It is actually really good training. But also I wanted to mention, I didn't update this slide. TAFE Queensland has got some micro-credentialing training, which I believe is free. If it's free for eligible workers, but there's one in particular which is about COVID safety in food preparation, and I think it could be really useful in our industry. So they say it's for hospitality workers. I think if you said, well, we're engaged in delivering food in an outdoor setting, then I reckon that, you know, they'd probably be happy to make it available. So there is that training from TAFE as well that I just wanted to mention again. There's general business training from TAFE Queensland, which is free for eligible businesses, but also this the worker training for hospitality workers. The COVID training for hospitality workers, I think, is worth a look. So please have a look at that as well. Moving right along, we've mentioned these for a few weeks, the Queensland Government Small Business COVID-19 Adaptation Grant Program. So round 2 is still open for regional Queensland. I think they're up to approaching 60% of their allocation. I just checked it this morning. So it's still open. It's between $2,000 and $10,000 per eligible small or micro business. Mark's just shared that one as well, so in the chat. So have a look at their website. It's just, all I can say is get in for your chop. If the government wants to give you some money, I think that's a good thing. It's closed for Southeast Queensland. They went really quickly, and they don't seem to have any. They don't have any messaging there about whether, if the regional Queensland quota isn't filled, whether they'll open up an extra round for Southeast Queensland. But it wouldn't surprise me if they've allocated that money for business support. It wouldn't surprise me, so we'll keep an eye on that as well. But the Southeast Queensland business one goes really quickly because obviously there's a lot of businesses down here. So yeah, I just wanted to flag that. But I'd also say, if you're a regional business, get in soon, because it doesn't say when that program's going to close. So I'd just sort of really encourage you to have a look at it if you're eligible. Again, the Queensland Government's restart funding, this is more about clubs. The Fair Play vouchers are still open, and so is the Active Restart Infrastructure Recovery Fund, a very catchy title. That one's for grants that can support the return to play for clubs. So I think that one's $2 or $3 per club that's available. So it's worth a look too. So I just wanted to put that out there. The government's also, just to let you know, the government actually, because we Corf rents premises from the Queensland Government at Sports House at Milton, or as I like to call it, Sport and Recreation House. I was thinking of Gorilla changing the name on the building, but I haven't quite done that yet. But they've actually waived our rent for 6 months too, as a way of supporting Corf, the tenants of Sports House. So I just wanted to acknowledge that too. The Queensland Government, it's been funny, they haven't sent us a bill each month, and I've been asking what's going on with our rent. And so they've actually finally confirmed that they were giving us 6 months rent relief, which is great. So it is greatly appreciated by Corf and by the board, I suppose. And it lets us apply our funds in these times to supporting you guys particularly. So yeah, I just wanted to acknowledge that as well. Just a quick update too on the JobKeeper program. I mentioned this last week. Laurie from Outdoors New South Wales gave me some information about the announcement last week, which was that the extension of JobKeeper through until March next year for eligible employers. But they said last week, though, that every employer would have to reassess eligibility based on June, September and December quarter turnovers. And they introduced this 2-tiered payment for the full-time versus part-time staff. Just yesterday, they announced that they'll ease some of those criteria. So you won't need to do each quarter reassessment, which is a really good development, I think. But they also said yesterday that workers would qualify if employed on the 1st of July. So before, you had to be employed on the 1st of March or you weren't eligible. So that one's an interesting change too, that might mean that some businesses you can opt in now. You don't have to have opted in back in March, whereas at the start of the program you did have to. So it might be worth a look for anyone who hasn't yet opted into it to see if you are eligible under the new scheme that's extended. But they did say to qualify the scheme in January, you still have to show a loss for the December quarter, but at least in the meantime, if you qualify now, you will continue to qualify for the extension, I understand it, unless that changes further. But yeah, I just wanted to share that. And Mark's just shared an ABC News story on that, which they just published last night. So just for your info, it's worth a look if you are either eligible for, or sorry, if you're already registered or you might be eligible. It's worth having a look at that story and getting probably, I don't know if the federal government's published info on their coronavirus, the corona COVID webpage, but I imagine they will shortly.
Dom, got
yes,
a question. Sorry, David here. How do you folks, how does the room perhaps think that they're going to interpret an outdoor editor's career when it says 20 hours a week or less? But yeah, we work anywhere up to 80 hours a week when we're actually working, but when we're not working because we're, say, casual or we're through an agency, how is it going to work for us?
Yeah, Dave Chitty, I'm not sure if he's on the call, but he actually has looked into this a lot. And he said that he's actually gone to the ATO and asked some questions about it specifically because he was trying to work it out for his stuff, because they're very seasonal, because he's in the high country in Victoria. So obviously have quite seasonal employment down there. And what he said they came back with was taking an average of hours over a set period, over the period that the schemes applies to. So that's where they came to. It appears from what he said that the ATO were actually quite accommodating of that situation, more than probably what you've heard in the media. A lot of stuff in the media was about how this is awful for casuals. And I think from what he said, from his engagement with them, that the people he actually spoke to were trying to make it work. You know, they were actually quite accommodating. So that was the piece that he came to of the whole average hours over a period.
Because, you know, as you know, in outdoor education, outdoor rec, we don't work normal office hours. We don't get paid for those hours effectively. It's a daily rate normally, but you could be working anywhere up to 10 to 14 hours a day on the job before you're in your tent or you're in your overnight accommodation. And so I don't know if we get pushback from the ATO about the fact that these hours don't actually relate to a logical perspective of how a workplace actually functions.
Yeah, and it's the other part of that is the fact that if you're not actually recording the hours worked, if we just record a day, so you know you work Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, that actually could be 30, 40 hours in 3 days, particularly for some programs. Whereas are they just going to go look at it and go, oh well, you work 3 days. That might not actually get you to 20 hours in some workplaces if they're only working, under 7 hours a day. So I think it's about being able to justify that decision, but it is obviously super valuable to go from working 19 hours on average a fortnight to 21 hours, a week. 20 hours work per fortnight, right? I think that's 20 hours per week. That should be, I'm not sure. On the slide there, I've got it as 20 per fortnight.
It's 20 per week.
Yeah. So if you are there, Dave, g'day. I don't know if you wanted to comment further on that. I just used what you said a few weeks ago. But have you had anything further on that one?
Yeah, look, I haven't gone back to the ATO, but I'm keeping a record of where my people work, and they might just be cleaning some ropes or working around the office or doing a reconnaissance, although we're not allowed to do that now. So I've done a lot of make work to keep the 20 hours up, and it's not hard to do 20 hours in the outdoors. I sent two of them down to do a reconnaissance, like of a bushwalk for the future, and I mean that was sort of like a 12-hour day for each of them, for instance. So in our world, but I am recording what I'm doing in case I get audited. And David Payne asked, do staff need to be employed for 12 months? My understanding is that as long as you've got them on the books as of the 1st of July, the new staff are eligible. That's what my accountant told me anyway. But I mean, I think the thing is write to your accountant, get them to check with the blasted ATO or check yourself. You can always write to the ATO or, and they've got to answer you.
Yeah, thanks, David. yeah, I think it is per week on the slide. I've got that wrong there, so I'll have to fix that for future, or hopefully the government will fix it and have it all sorted. But yeah, but thanks, mate. Just on the blue card stuff, I've mentioned this a few times, and it comes in Queensland on the 31st of August, which is all of 3 weeks away now, so 3 and a bit weeks away. The no card, no start rule is really important, particularly for paid employees. And you can't actually start working with children while your application for a blue card is being processed. And the blue card has to be linked to the employing organisation. That's the other one. So even if you have one, it has to be linked to the employer before you can start working for that employer with children. So it's important to know that. I haven't managed to get hold of someone from Blue Card Services to come and talk to us yet, but we might try to line that up for a couple of weeks' time. Although I imagine they're probably a little bit busy right now trying to sort out their systems. So I'll see what I can get on that one. I mentioned this insurance inquiry last week too, so I just wanted to, as a reminder, sorry, I just noticed Graham had a comment there about the blue card. Volunteer ones can't be used if you're in paid work anymore. I think you meant to say, Graham, might have missed a cannot in there, but yeah, that's another point of it. You have to, if you're in paid work, you've got to have the paid card. So that's an important piece of the changes. And a lot of those changes came about as a result of the Royal Commission into child abuse. So, you know, it's good to see them coming in, but we need to be well aware of it so that no one gets caught and you don't want to be doing the wrong thing, which is why I'm probably carrying on about it and making sure everyone's aware of those changes. This insurance inquiry, I'd really encourage people to either do the survey or send them an email submission. If you've had any dramas in relation to insurance affordability and availability. So the point on that one is the fact that if insurance is actually unaffordable, then realistically it's unavailable. So it's an important piece of work that the federal government's doing, the Small Business and Family Enterprise Ombudsman. So it's really an opportunity for us to have a say in relation to that inquiry. Not sure if anyone's had a chance to have a look at their survey yet, but I'd just encourage you to have a look at it. Mark's just shared that the link to that inquiry on their website. So yeah, please have a look at that and yeah, give them your honest feedback so they understand what small businesses are actually facing, rather than just hearing from, I guess, the insurers who might tell them that everything's peachy. So I think it's worth them getting the real picture. Inside the outhouse, I'm not sure if Pete's on here today, but David, if you wanted to have a chat, I don't know if Sheree or Ellen are with us, but you want to
yeah, thanks, Dom. No, you guys can hear me okay. Big news this week, we've finally got our website up and working, so you can come and find all the resources from the last 16 weeks, and I went a bit early in the chat, at insidetheouthouse.org. That's our new home base of video content from the last 16 weeks are all going to be posted up there. This week, again, 4/17 on a Monday, we'll be covering the topics around programming during the pandemic. David Gemmell from Brighton Grammar School is going to come in and speak out of Victoria. Obviously, they're probably in shutdown at the moment, but we'd love to hear from anyone who's currently running programs, developing programs, or thinking about what they're going to do next once they can actually get programming happening again, and how it's changing for you and your workplace and your organisation. So 4/17 on a Monday, inside the outhouse with Pete, Sheree, Ellen, and myself. And Henry Friend has now joined us as part of the management team to help us distribute the load. So yeah, come and join us if you've got some time. Just an hour, casual chat, supporting the Out the Red community.
Terrific. Thanks, David. That's a really good topic too, as far as designing programs in the current environment. Maybe you should think about the work that Inside the Outhouse has contributed. That sounds like something that could be nominated for an award if there was any award nominations open at the moment or something. Just an idea, mate.
I'm just leaving it out there for other people to plug us. Just a bit of a dangler though, a bit of a what do they call that, a teaser, not a dangler. 24th of August, we're going to have a tertiary sector forum, and we've got commitments from USC already to come in and talk about how their program's going and adapting during the COVID, and pretty relevant given the fact that several Victorian courses have shut down in the last week or two out of Victoria. I think Monash is gone at the moment. ACU have rolled up their doors, and there was another university, name escapes me at the moment.
Charles Sturt.
Charles Sturt, yes, have also suspended or stopped their programming. So we're going to try and get some people from those sectors in to talk about that end of the month, 24th. But next week, programming. So hope to see you in the outhouse.
I believe ACU's shut up theirs for the next 12 months as well.
Yes, that's correct. Yeah, that's what we've heard as well. So we're going to try and reach out to people down in Victoria and in Brisbane to talk about that and what the reality is going to look like. That's going to be on the 24th, though. So
okay.
Thanks, Tom.
Yeah, I'm an apology for next week. I'm actually taking a week off and going camping, so I'll be outside the in-house if that makes sense, mate, for you. So.
No, you have to zoom in from a remote location. We had somebody do that last week from being in the field. So no excuses, Dom.
Okay, we'll see, mate. That's what my mum used to say whenever any of me or my several brothers or sister asked for something that we knew wasn't going to happen. We'd just get "we'll see." So. I just want a reminder, the Seek Outdoor Jobs portal, if anyone is looking to post an ad with Seek, you can boost it into the inclusion in this outdoor portal as well. So please feel free to have a look at that one. I just noticed too, Mark did just share the happy hour that's at 4 o'clock this hour that Outdoors New South Wales runs. So Mark's just posted a link to that too. And David's gone insidetheouthouse.org. Beautiful to see the website there, mate. And Mark's just shared this Seek one as well. So yeah, it is worth it if we're trying to build that up as a way of for people to share their jobs so that it gets a bit more reach on Seek to the outdoor sector. All right, the fun old topic of industry COVID safe plans. Is anyone sick of hearing about this stuff yet? It seems to be something. There's a hand go up there. Yeah, look, they are important, but I just wanted to open it up to if there's any questions on any of this stuff. I did update it. That's the new statement of compliance that's on the government website. They have said if you use the old one, you've signed it and you've displayed it around your venue, that's fine. But if you haven't yet, obviously use the latest version. The dot points there, I think, are actually really important that they've thrown in there. The bit about COVID safe site, contact details for tracing purposes upon entry, and then social distancing, hand washing, and following the rules to keep everyone safe. So obviously that's an important document to display. But yeah, just wanted to get into this. Another reminder, I've had a couple of people ask me this, so I just wanted to make it really clear that you don't have to be a member of your industry body like CORF to use the industry plan. Had a couple of people actually contact me about that, and I said, no, they're open to anyone. They've been developed by CORF with the input from the industry, but you don't have to be a member. That doesn't mean you shouldn't be a member of CORF, but you don't have to be a member to use the plan. Just wanted to, so we spoke about this last week, that the new versions were updated on the 23rd of July. So we're up to version 13 on the outdoor rec activity providers and version 14 on the outdoor ed providers plan. I'm hoping we don't get to beyond the teens in these documents, but who knows? Let's just sort of see how we go. They might need to be updated as we go along, but yeah, we'll just see what happens as situations change that aren't covered in there. I just saw a question from Dave Payne. What other documents should individual businesses have in place aside from the, what's RAMP, Dave? Something management plan? You there, Dave? Risk assessment and management plan, I'm guessing. I guess the biggest one is an updated workplace health and safety system, which could be a health management plan, is what some people are calling the document you can develop that is basically an appendix to your workplace health and safety system. So yeah, risk assessment, Dave's put in the comments. So yeah, so that's probably the key piece of work. The statement of compliance I mentioned before, but the other one is actually records of training of all of this. That's a really important piece of work that you need to have as documentation, which I'm sure everyone would have, but just a reminder, the training that you've done on it. The other ones is the records of attendance, the attendance registers. That's really critically important. From Queensland Health, if there is an outbreak later, then you need to have those documents available and be able to make it available. The record of attendance on a particular day within an hour to Queensland Health is the legislated requirement. So if the hour deadline scares you, then you might need to improve your systems, would be the way I'd put it, because they're pretty serious about it. It's pretty full on. So you need to be able to make that available within an hour to satisfy Queensland Health. And there actually are penalties if you can't do that. And I don't think anyone wants to get any further penalties in this current economic environment. So I think Queensland Health would be reasonable about it, but at the same time, if you can't do it, they're going to be asking why in a decent way. So did someone have a comment? Oh, okay. Keeping on charging along. Just in case people weren't with us last week, this is the updated version to the outdoor rec activity providers. It includes that event framework, principles, strategies, and information about the field of play concept, where you don't have to worry about physical distancing while your activity is being conducted. So they're important changes in there. It's pretty complex, the whole field of play stuff, but realistically it comes down to while your activity is underway, you'd be considered on the field of play, and that applies. You can't mix what they use the term teams, but also you can't have spectators allowed in with active participants on the field of play. So that's something to think about in our context, where you could actually have people waiting to do an activity as spectators. You need to have some, if there's full contact, those spectators shouldn't be contacting. But most of the time, I guess most people are active at the same time in our world. Not sure if anyone has any questions on that one. It's a bit of a work in progress as far as what that field of play means for outdoor activities as compared to sports. It's pretty obvious with sports, I think, with most sports. But yeah, that's just one to know about. The other one, the changes that were made that we talked about last week about in the outdoor education providers plan, the group leaders and activity leaders changed, just a clarification really on that, and the food service one, which was about in the retail food services plan, which this plan refers to. It actually talks about food prep, cleaning, hygiene and sanitisation protocols as set out in the retail food services plan. So that's a deliberate system there about not including some of the stuff about how people are served necessarily, because it's very confusing in that other plan. I found it anyway. But the Chief Health Officer in Queensland has got a requirement that all patrons have to be seated when eating or drinking. So that's an important one from their point of view as well. So I just wanted to flag that too. The other ones, I think the multiple activity group leaders is probably an important point too, as far as you don't have to have one person conducting all activities with one smaller group of participants. So just that's actually clarified in the new plan. This slide I've just slotted in about implementation of these COVID safe plans. So I put the Sport and Rec COVID-19 email address up there again. That's the one if you've got any formal queries about the any of the COVID safe plans in our industry, you can email that and you'll get a formal response. And they've been really quite good at responding quickly to those emails. I think they try to do it within 2 business days, which, if anyone's ever contacted government, that's actually probably a world record for government responses to get back a formal response, particularly if you're asking a good tricky question, which I've seen. I've had a few people, which I'm really happy with, copy me into an email to that email address, and I see their email and go, gee, I'm glad you didn't ask me that. Because some of them are really quite technical and tricky, and that sometimes the SR COVID-19 have copied me into their response, and it's been really good to see. So yeah, feel free to use that email address. They actually really encourage it. They told me this week that there's been some people have actually sent emails directly to Queensland Health, and then they bounce around government until they work out which department it should have gone to, and then those guys get tasked with answering it. So that can delay the responses. So they're very keen to have them sent directly to that SR_COVID-19, which Mark's just shared in the comments. Yeah, so it's a team within Sport and Rec. So there's a couple of people from the rec centres, but there's actually a whole team at Sport and Rec who are dealing with that email address and getting the right answers for everyone. Also got the public health unit. So I mentioned a couple of weeks ago, Mark and I went to the Sport and Rec Centre at Sunshine Coast at Curramundi. Must be 2 Thursdays ago, I think, Mark, that we went there. But I went yesterday. They invited public health unit, so that was for the Sunshine Coast. Yesterday, the Gold Coast Rec Centre invited the Gold Coast Public Health Unit to come out and look at their preparations for compliance with the industry plan. And so they invited me along to that visit, and it was really good. So, but also the guy from the Public Health Unit, he said that they're really happy, and part of their job is to do proactive visits. He said they'd much rather be doing that than doing the reactive stuff. So he did say I told him about this session. He said yeah, let people know if you want to contact your local public health unit, please do. And you can just line them up and invite them to come out to your centre to have a look. You can provide them with your documentation and then show them what you're doing. My take on it is it's a, as I said, proactive site visit. I didn't use the term audit because that's the scariest term you can use for a lot of people, but it's about inviting them in so they understand our settings better and understand the precautions and the protocols that you've got in place to follow and comply with the industry plan. And that was a really good discussion yesterday at the Gold Coast Rec Centre. They went through to quite detail on how that centre operates and the COVID safe protocols that they've put in place. Yeah, so and they gave some good feedback as well. So yeah, I think it's worth a thought if you're at that point where you've got everything ready to go, but you want to have a second opinion, even officially from health, on how you're running your programs or those sort of things. So I think it's a good service that I think we should avail ourselves of. If anyone has any questions, please sing out. So that's the link there that I put on the screen there, which is the contact details for the public health units. So some of them, strangely enough, I think there's only 2 in the whole list. There's about 10 or 12 of these public health units across Queensland, and you're better off going to your local one. Only 2 of them seem to actually have an email address. The others are just a phone call. So I think it'd probably be worth giving them a call and seeing if you can line something up. But yeah, so Mark's just shared that link, so thank you, mate. The other couple of things there on the screen, Department of Education's outdoor and environmental ed centres, they're going to be following the approved industry plan for outdoor ed providers. So in the past, they were instructed to follow the, I'll get it wrong, but it was a Department of Education boarding house guideline up until now. So they've designed their plans around that. But the department this week has advised that they will be following the industry plans. Some of them have already got a plan that they developed, which was approved by their public health unit under the boarding house guidelines, but others will actually switch straight over. So they're looking at how they're going to do this move so that everyone's using the industry plans evenly. So they're working on that at the moment as well. So I think that's a good decision from the Department of Education, because basically they were using that boarding house guideline partly because it was before the industry plan was actually approved. So they wanted to give them some guidance, but now that the industry plan's out there and working, I think they've made the decision that the centres will switch over to that plan. I'm not sure how long that's going to take and how it's going to work. But yeah, that's a decision that I'm very happy to see. So I think it'll hopefully tidy up some of the confusion, particularly for schools, as far as that system of having two different guiding documents, and only one of those was actually approved by the Chief Health Officer, which is the industry plan. We've also organised an online session. Sorry, if anyone has any questions on any of this stuff, please sing out, put your hand up. The online session we got there at the bottom is about discussing the limit on group sizes under the outdoor ed providers industry plan. So we're running that session from 12 noon on Wednesday, the 9th of August. What we're trying to do there is look at developing a case to present to the Chief Health Officer and her staff at the appropriate time. And I'm very conscious that right now is probably not the appropriate time to go and ask for a relaxation on this stuff. But what we're looking to do is run that session on Wednesday week, and then we'll put together a bit of a case, and then time when we make the request about some sort of relaxation on that, which we've talked about multiple times in these sessions. The big piece I think there is, do we, and we'll have that discussion in that session, but if you've got any dot points, anything you want to really talk about in that session, if you can't attend, send them through to Mark or myself, or even if you want to sort of have them as talking points, I'm happy for you to send them through if you can attend and you want to have something to build the conversation around. But it might be that we go back and say, can you bump it up to 120 or 150 or some magic number? The problem is any arbitrary number that we come up with, there's always going to be someone who has a group one larger than that where it doesn't work. So we need to know what works, but at the same time, we need to acknowledge that we have got the relaxation on that 4 square metres for kids. So we need to be careful what we go in there asking for, but I think we need to build the case and put the story together. So we've already had, I think, about a dozen people register for that session, which is awesome. Feel free to share. Mark shared the link in the chat there, but feel free to share that. It's more the merrier if you want to join us. We suspect it'll be about an hour-long session from anyone in the outdoor ed world and anyone who's actually covered by the outdoor ed plan. So it's actually a bit more broad than what we think of as traditional outdoor ed people, so the environmental ed centres who have residentials, the ones I mentioned just before, they're involved in that too. There'll be other organisations that offer residential services as part of the outdoor world. So yeah, just please consider that if you're interested. It's an important piece of work that we're trying to build on that one. Any queries on any of those things before I move along? Nope. All right. COVID safe events. Again, I've mentioned this a couple of times, trying to line someone up from whatever that department's called, Department of Tourism and Tourism Industry Development, something like that. Trying to get them to see if they can come along and talk to us about this event, the event framework and how it applies to our events. Yeah, we'll just see what we can get there. We've got the plan now includes reference to the principles and the strategies in this framework. And I think I said it last week, the fact that they actually called it an industry framework for COVID safe events is a good piece of work. So I think that's good because it shows this isn't actually your plan. This is just a framework you can build a plan off, which is exactly the same as what the government's called industry plans that we develop. They're really frameworks to develop your own business plan around and your COVID safe measures. Just wanted to see, the other one I was looking at is actually, we've talked about organising a session. I'll need to get the right feedback for the contacts from the event people so we have the right people in the room for that before we organise that. But that's still on the burner for a future session. Is any questions on the events? Because I've sort of been talking about this and like I've said every time, does anyone have anything? But I just wanted to check and maybe just pause for a second and see if anyone wants to have any comment about events right across how they're run through the outdoor sector. It also gives me a chance to have a sip of my coffee.
Dom, just Danny.
Hey, mate.
Hi. I'd be interested to hear from anyone that's put together an event specifically to do with at their centre, where obviously it's an extraordinary gathering of people in the context of what they normally do. So in other words, you could have a client in that opens up a public event, or you could have, you know, a finale event or something like that that's part of that group's what they're doing with you. I'd be interested to see if anyone's put that together as an event and used the checklist for it.
Yeah, is anyone on the call at the moment? We've got about 30 people, but has anyone actually looked at that as running an event, almost like a dry hire of your venue to run an event? Is there anyone who wants to comment on that one? It did come up yesterday at the Gold Coast Rec Centre visit because one of the things they do, Danny, is they hire their venue out for sporting clubs to come in and run. You know, they've got a footy field and I think they've got volleyball courts, that sort of thing. So they certainly talked about it yesterday, and one of their questions was about what sort of contact tracing do they need in relation to when you're running an event like that. And there was a whole lot of discussion about what the venue needs to do and what the event organiser needs to do. And that was also discussed in the webinar that I attended, Mark did too, a couple of weeks ago, about that QTIC put on, the Queensland Tourism Industry Council. And they said the primary responsibility then was for the event organiser to keep all those details, but they said there would still be some responsibility on the venue. And that was mentioned yesterday too, where the public health unit people were saying, what you might want to do is actually say to the event organiser when they're booking in, okay, just explain to me what your processes are about contact tracing, so that if someone from public health unit comes to you, you can say, no, they reassured me and gave me a copy of their documentation. So that was a sort of discussion that was had, but it is a little bit, the reminder probably on this, and it's probably the same as all this COVID stuff, is it's about responsibility on everyone to do their bit to make sure everyone's safe. So I think, you know, I raised the question with them. I said, well, suppose the event was a wedding. It's not like the venue is going to keep a list of the name of all the caterers and the band and all the guests and the photographer. That would be up to the event organiser to do that. And I said, you know, it's not really reasonable to expect a venue to have all that. And the public health people went, yeah, that's probably fair enough. So in that situation, you could probably, you know, have that argument about, well, we're making the venue available, but we'll do what we can. But realistically, we're not running that event. We're not promoting it. So it's what responsibility each party has in it. Moving on from events, and gee, we're well ahead of time today. I must be getting good at this, or you guys are sick of hearing me. Just a reminder, we've got a week off next week from Coffee and Conversation. It's the Echo Show holiday in Brisbane, and I'm very aware that we're the Queensland Outdoor Recreation Federation, we're not the Brisbane Federation, but I'm also taking a week off to go camping. So we thought it'd be a good chance to give you guys a week off from seeing us. But if things happen to go, I shouldn't say pear-shaped, if we need to run one of these sessions next week, then Mark will do that. He's more than capable, and you'll get to hear his funny jokes instead of mine. But Mark will let everyone know if there is a session, but otherwise we'll resume on the Friday, the 21st of August. But yeah, if anyone has any topics or discussions that you want to have in that session, please zip us through an email. More than happy to add stuff into these sessions, or if someone wants to talk about the changes they've made to their centre or to their protocols, more than happy to do that as well. Any questions, queries, other topics? I am wondering how many people are going to rock up at 11 o'clock next week just for a chat. See what happens. But yeah, I think we've covered all of that. I did see Jamie Bennett from WA is on the call. I know, Jamie, if you wanted to give us anything on what's been happening in the wonderful world of the West, mate. You might be pretending to be there.
Can you hear me?
Yes, mate.
Can you hear me? Full steam ahead here, mate. I'd like to advise the rest of the country. No, it is positive in terms of that we are seeing programs gradually return and bookings. So people are still seeking to operate in a manner that's, you know, in compliant with our COVID restraints, but we're down now to 2 square metres instead of the 4 square metre rule. So it does give us much more flexibility in terms of programming, which is good, but of course our COVID position is quite reliant on a very hard border with the rest of the states. So that does provide challenges in terms of staffing and you know, ensuring that you've got the right people in place. And so there is scrambling between providers to manage that. But there's also still concern, which I'm sure is the same in the rest of the country, that not all of the community is ready to move in terms of going on camp or going into parts of the outdoors. So there's still that high level of concern, and I think that's probably exacerbated by some of the unfortunate circumstances that we see in the rest of the country. Having said that, I guess the other positive thing is that Western Australians individually are undertaking quite a bit more outdoor recreation activity. So, you know, our hope is that, you know, as we get to that point of recovery, that hopefully people will continue that participation, which will be good for us all. Thanks, mate.
Thanks, Jamie. Well, I'm going to do my bit for outdoor recreation participation next week by going camping. And that's a large part of that is about me recharging as well, because obviously it's been a fairly hectic, I was going to say 6 months, we're actually in August. So yeah, it's been a bit ridiculous so far this year. So I'm looking forward to taking my break and boosting your stats too on outdoor rec participation, mate. But yeah, thank you for that. You know, I guess for all the discussions we've had, I probably wanted to just, and I've mentioned this in a couple of phone conversations I've had with people about, it's important that we remember, building from what Jamie just said, that we all remember the benefits in the outdoor activities that we deliver and that we make available for so many people when we're lucky enough to be able to do that. But we remember the benefits of that and also the risks involved in not doing it. So we keep talking about the risks that are posed by COVID, but I think we need to also keep in mind the risks of not doing some of these outdoor activities, as far as missing out on these benefits, missing out on all the good things that we actually can make available. So that even that sense of adventure, and even for me, I'm going to say the anticipation that I've had just from looking at, like, I've got a few days, where am I actually going to go? And, you know, obviously Queensland being the best state in the whole country, I'm sort of got plenty of options, and I'm lucky enough to be able to take advantage of some of those options. But I think the benefits of it, the fact of the the opportunities that we do have, I think we need to probably reflect on that a little bit. We probably get a little bit, maybe I'm speaking, maybe it's just for myself at least, you get obsessed with all the risks involved in COVID, and we probably need to look on the benefit side of it as well. And maybe that's some messaging we need to put out there as well to people to say, you know, we used those memes early on to take a break from the chaos stuff that we had going. Maybe we need to run them a bit more to say to people, look, you can take a break outdoors, particularly in the West and in Queensland and South Australia, and the Territory never missed a beat with their world. I think they haven't even had any cases as far as I'm aware, but yeah, so it is certainly, things are not good in New South Wales and Victoria, but yeah, obviously in other parts of the country, we need to keep up the good work as far as getting more people outdoors. Does anyone else have any topics you want to? We're approaching midday, but gee, I'm going to give you an early mark and then a week off. I can't be too generous. So,
yeah, Dom, Brad here. Can I pick your brains for a sec?
Go for your life, Brad. I'm not sure how much brain there is left, mate, but go for
it. Pick what's left, hey? Yeah, look, have a good week next week. Sounds great. Yeah, look, again, I've just jumped in on the back of this session, but just wondering where this situation might sit. So we're operating under the industry plan here. We're into our second program, which on the back of what you just said is, yeah, it's just awesome. It's great to see good outcomes happening again with our students. And certainly families and schools are appreciating that. So our routine here is that we would normally run an extended stay program, and then there's a family day or an open day in that. Now, we're actually not doing that with our current management plan, but I'm just wondering whether that may be possible and whether that can sit under another, like an events kind of framework, you know. So effectively what that means in terms of numbers, that we've got about 40 kids here at a time. But if we open it up to family day, well then, you know, you're going to have, even if we just said it like it's just restricted to 2 people per child, well then we're going to end up with 120. In your opinion, is that possible, or does that sit in a different space altogether?
I've got to say, Brad, you are picking my brains, mate. I think you could probably almost separate it out. It depends how you're running it, but maybe you could separate that out as a separate group that's coming, but they're going to interact. So you can't, that's probably the problem there under the industry plan, unless you had it as a separate event on that day, which isn't the program itself, and you could run it under as an event and have something go with those event protocols, which talk about how you manage it. So there might be a way of doing that. I guess it depends, again, talking about the benefits, and that's partly sharing the benefits of those kids being there as a part of your programming. You know, maybe that's a way of doing it. Maybe I might have to put the thinking cap on a little bit more and maybe discuss it with you a bit more, maybe when I get back. But that's sort of
I think the event kind of framework would sit, particularly if like what we call family day is actually on the last day of program. So essentially the parents come and pick their kids up from here, and so we could, you know, we could have some measures in place to ensure that there's, I guess, restricted use to amenities, and I guess in terms of families generally just sit around in their family groups, which I'll of course be going back to that very day. So. Yes, I think particularly if it was on the last day, I could see how that might work.
Yeah, it might be more difficult if it was in the middle of your program and then you had to say to the kids, right, I get back into your program. That might be a more difficult process. But yeah, I think maybe that's a way of doing it. But yeah, like I say, maybe it's worth us having a bit of a chat once I get back from leave, mate. If you want to give us a bell, or even just send us through an email to line something up.
All right, sounds good. Appreciate that. Thank you.
No worries, bro. I just saw Graham just said, can he mention first aid? Of course you can, Graham. Go for your life, mate.
Well, thanks, Dom. Just to remind everyone, we are running first aid courses in Brisbane now and on the Sunshine Coast. The remote area locality first aid course with an extended unit of advanced wound management. The next session for that will be on the 12th and 13th of September. And we still have some positions left for our course, which is the basic first aid course, a single day one in Caloundra on the 15th of August, so next Saturday. So if anyone needs to upgrade or just do their CPR, you can get in touch with me via admin@greenfrogadventures.com.au.
Terrific. Thanks, Graham. If you want to share that in the chat too, so then it'll be in the list, the email address. The other one I did just quickly want to mention that I forgot, that came out of, and Graham just reminded me there a little bit, it came out of the visit to the public health unit, yesterday at the Gold Coast Rec Centre. They asked a question about if you have a kid who's presented with symptoms of COVID-19 and you isolate that person and you can transport them to get them a test, or the teacher can drive them with both wearing masks, that sort of stuff. The question was then, what happens with the rest of the program? Like, do you need to actually call the program off because you've got a suspected case? And the public health unit guys, they were like, no. The thing is, even if that child's been in close contact with a group of other students, which is, could have easily happened during the program, what they said is it takes a couple of days for any of those other students to actually become infectious. So the advice they said was, you can continue with your program, but obviously you have to very carefully monitor if anyone shows any signs and symptoms of COVID-19, but you can continue with your program. And it's that the other kids actually wouldn't, just because you've been exposed to some of COVID doesn't mean you're infectious straight away. You're not infectious until the virus has established itself in your system. So I just thought it'd be worth sharing that, just as a bit of an update, which put my mind at rest a little bit too, because I've actually been wondering that one too. So that was straight from the public health people. It was really good. I hope I'm not taking them out of context too much, but that's pretty much the way they described it. And the other thing is that the participant should actually have their results in a couple of days. I think it's been taking a little bit longer recently because there has been so much testing going on, but you should know also in a couple of weeks, a couple of days, that they get the results back. So, and I'm sure the public health unit will be letting you know if that is a positive test result. So Graham's just shared the details. Thank you, mate, for that, and the admin email address there. If you do need that, please give Graham a yell and see what you can sort out. And obviously, that's about our keeping everyone up to date and as safe as possible out there in the great outdoors. So look,
to give you an idea, Dom, I got tested on Monday and I only got my results back today. So it's about a week between the testing and the results coming in at the moment.
Yeah, thanks, Kelly. I hope it's negative, but
Yes, it was negative. I'm fine.
And that's something the Chief Health Officer actually mentioned in a radio interview too, that it has taken longer. Particularly, I think the non-government. So if you went to a private pathology lab, like the referrals from a GP, apparently they're taking a bit longer because they're doing so many at the moment. They said that the fever clinics set up by the government, like at the hospitals, are still turning the results around in 48 hours or so, but it depends on the lab, I think, and the backlog. So, I
had mine done at QE2 and it's taken that long. So
okay.
just as an idea, so as people have got an idea of what the time frame is.
Yeah, okay, no worries. Thanks, Kelly. Well, I'm glad it was negative. That's the most important part of that story. But yeah, to know that time frame, that it can take several days. And that's, I guess, what we're living with at the minute. But unless anyone else has anything else, we'll finish up there. I hope you all have a great week ahead, and don't forget, you got a week off next week from this session. So we'll wind it up there. Thanks very much for the wishes for my holidays as well. So I'm sure I'll have a good time. It's hard to have a bad time when you're camping, isn't it? You can be sure there's going to be some serious rain in southeast Queensland in the next week, but I've just created that for everyone. Sorry. Righto. I'll catch everyone later.